Welcome back to the weekly 6-5 podcast. I am Pat Moorhead, and I'm sure everybody knows Daniel Newman. And it's a favorite day of the week, on the road the entire week, but we made it back just in time to get on this show. Daniel, how you doing this morning?
Hey, buddy, it's Friday. It's episode 218. We've done this now 217 times, and by the end of the hour, we'll have done it 218, not to mention thousands of other sit-downs and hundreds of summit sessions and all kinds of other endless punditry, thought leadership, commentary, analysis. But I'm okay. I mean, we squeezed a red eye in this week, coast to coast. And I've got another month, buddy, and it's just going to be freaking brutal before my world clears up.
Yeah, when I add the whole thing up, I will have traveled, I think seven straight weeks, but I'm not dead yet. Focused on my health. Haven't slept really much at all this week, but I'm feeling pretty good. Dan, I'm in that third month of gut-killing drugs, and I'm feeling remarkably well. I mean, I think this stuff might be working. But hey, enough about us, but we do like to talk about ourselves. I mean, you got to have a pretty big ego to do what we do. But hey, we got a great show for you. We're talking about Dell Tech World 2024, Microsoft Build, IBM Think. We're going to have a special guest on. Who could that be? Guesty Bestie. Cannot wait. We're going to talk about NVIDIA's just crushing earnings, Synopsys, and Lenovo earnings. We're going to save all the earnings for the end. And hey, just as a reminder, we do cover publicly traded companies. Don't take anything we say as investment advice. If you saw Dan's portfolio, you would run away.
Mine?
Except for the crypto, of course.
Yeah, man. Well, it depends on the week with the crypto. You know what I mean?
Totally. I never hear from you when it plummets, but man, I hear from you. You're showing me screenshots of how well it does when it's up.
Yeah, well, I only count my wins. Pat, how many times in your history have you gone back and really leaned into one of those tweets where you really bombed?
Oh, never. In fact, I just go and delete it, Dan.
Yeah. Thank God there's no caching of the internet. No. The Wayback
Machine is there for Twitter too.
Oh, I had an idea. We should get a computer that takes endless screenshots of your activity all day long, so you can semantically search it. Boop.
How about that? We are going to talk about that.
That's not creepy. That's totally cool.
That is awesome because it sits on your PC, and oh my gosh, I hope you're not one of those people. Anyways. Let's dive into Dell Tech World. Dan and I were there in Vegas. I mean, it was just off the rail. 6-5 was there. I think we did like 11 videos. It's pretty awesome.
Hey, man. Well, yeah, great to be there. It was a sort of end-to-end, wall-to-wall, quick trip on the weekend. Got in town. Dell Tech World, zooming out a little bit into the macro. I mean, look, OEMs were boring for a long time. And let me just tell you something. Something happened at GTC this year. Jensen Huang, kingmaker, the godfather of AI, hint to who our guest may be later, suggested that Dell Technologies is the place to build your AI factories. I don't remember the exact words he used, but he pointed, he walked, it became Twitter famous instantaneously. And he basically anointed Dell as the company that can build your end-to-end AI factories. This event did not disappoint. Dell this week skyrocketed to a new all-time high. I know we're not just talking about markets, we're also talking about Dell Tech World, but these things are inextricably linked together. Right now, the world needs to build AI infrastructure. Now, there are the sort of mega cloud providers that are buying hundreds of billions of dollars of CapEx this year. And then there's going to be the on-prem enterprises that are going to want to deploy competitive AI solutions. Dell Technologies, led by, of course, Michael Dell, Jeff Clark, this week came to market with more new good stuff, supporting, the GPU upgrades, the Blackwell that's coming from NVIDIA. basically talked about what did Jensen say when he was on stage? Don't seduce me with your 72 Blackwells in one rack. Was it 72?
No, I know that. There was this weird, awkward moment. I don't know why. Like, you're not allowed to say, I think, the word passion or I don't know.
Seduce.
Seduce.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Jensen can say anything he wants. But the net of it is that the AI factory for the on-prem enterprise is going to start to see scale, and Dell is going to be in great shape. This was evident in its last quarter's AI server bookings. That backlog is growing by leaps and bounds. They're coming out with the new parts, and as NVIDIA continues to accelerate its roadmap to shorter and shorter timelines, this is going to bode really well for the companies that can get the parts and then get the servers built and then can get them deployed and can help enterprises deploy AI at scale on premises. So that was the big part. And of course, they backed it with new storage-driven architectures that are going to be more well-designed for AI. They didn't forget to focus on networking. We saw Charlie Kawwas, president of Broadcom, on the stage. And of course, they talked about, end-to-end solutions and software. Bill McDermott on the stage. It was the Bill and it was the Jensen, and then it was the Michael Dell show. And by the way, best part of the event was our selfie analysis, where we got an epic selfie with those three gentlemen when we went over and chatted with them for a bit. It was a great event. We sat down with Michael Dell. You got to check out the interview. We'll put it in the show notes. Long interview. I think Michael might have told you, Pat, that you are killing it. And that was a pretty amazing moment for all of us when a guy that's, created $100 billion empire by taking much more risk than most of the average bears, and at the same time doing it so strategically with such grace and humility. You just got to love that guy, don't you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he told us we were both killing it, but
yeah, and I like to hand the credit. I read a book called Play Nice But Win. It's something about giving more credit than you take, so you can have the credit. I'll live in the shadows, but I'll cash the checks.
I just thought you were doing it so it would force me to say, no, Daniel, you really are killing it.
Thank you, Pat. I needed to hear that this morning. The last thing I'll say, and I'm going to leave a little bit of this because this will actually flow nicely into our next topic, but they did announce 5 new Copilot Plus PCs, Dell, based on the Qualcomm architecture, which is a big deal. This has been going on for a long time. Qualcomm this week at Dell and at Build, which Pat will kick us off into, made some mega progress in its ambitions to play in the PC space based on more mobile-like architectures, giving real competition to Apple. And Dell had 5 variants that it announced this week. So it wasn't only an infrastructure show. It was an infrastructure show. It was a PC show. It was a great event for 6.5. Check out all of our other videos. Pat, I'll kick it over to you to talk Dell. And then, of course, you can top on what I'm starting here with the AI PC and Copilot Plus.
Yeah, so Dell Tech World, this is the first time that I have seen a cohesive strategy and communications from Dell related to AI. Hats off to them. It's AI, end-to-end AI. And the whole premise of the Dell AI factory, right? It all starts with the data, right, that you and I have been talking about forever. And then Dell, loads services, their ecosystem, and their infrastructure that delivers use cases, right? From content, code generation, data creation, a general digital assistant, computer vision, digital twins. And I just, and their objective here is to make it simple, secure, and economical. You cannot argue with that. And the way that they slice it up, they're literally showing how you can build your AI factory on premises, right? And they cut it by solution, by product, and by consumption model. So the new stuff they brought out, it was literally a sea of new. A lot of the times at Dell Tech World, you might see 2 or 3 things that are big, but it was pretty much off the rail, right? On the services side, right? Enterprise Hub, services for Copilot, open ecosystem. The new ones were Meta, Azure, Qualcomm, Hugging Face, and is, like you said, an expansion with NVIDIA. And the interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people caught is Jensen said with Dell, it's the largest go-to-market for his GPUs out there. That says a ton. And I don't know if that's largest go-to-market on-prem or overall, right? Even looking at places like Azure and AWS, but it was very impressive. And then on the infrastructure side, which we all know Dell for, like you said, 5 new Copilot Plus PCs, new power scale, new power switch to connect all that goodness in the rack and the fleet, and Dell data protection as well. So literally just like a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch. It all came together. And again, for the first time, Dell brought together a coherent strategy end to end. And by the way, Dell Data Lakehouse, right, Dan? How long have we been talking about the data game and all the? I'm the annoying guy in the back of the room that says, "Hey, how about Snowflake? What about Cloudera? What about Databricks?" Right? Somebody like that.
Snowflake had a good week. They had a pretty good result. I mean,
yeah, they did. No, but my point is not to. My point is that Dell, to me, for the first time, has pulled in the data part, not the storage part, not the data protection part, but the respect that data management is keeping most enterprises at bay. So, hey, let's dive into the next topic here. Microsoft Build. I mean, these Big Ten events, so many announcements. Copilot Plus PCs. Listen, I have created new category products. I created one of the first internet PCs when I was a Compaq. I created one of the first sub $1,000 PCs when I was a Compaq. It is freaking hard. Hats off to Qualcomm and Microsoft to do this, right? First of all, you've got to make bets 4 years before this, particularly on the silicon side. But roto-rooting your operating system to get there. This is freaking hard. And then you have to line across all the OEMs, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and more. And then across all the Taiwanese ODMs and the Chinese. And then aligning across ISVs and global channels. This stuff is hard, and it is very impressive. It's weird. The stuff on recall, like how ignorant can people be reporting that recall is this privacy nightmare? It's on device, folks. It is taking those snapshots. Oh, and you can turn it off if you want. Give it a break, folks. It annoys me at the ignorance in some of the folks who are essentially not doing their fact checks and just blowing up. And these are major outlets here. The other thing that I want to kick back on is Daniel, I think you refer to this time, the trip that we took to Seattle, to Redmond, to when generative AI started, and that was the Microsoft
it was
event.
The beginning, kind of, yeah. No,
with OpenAI.
Yeah.
Boy, has Copilot been moving top to bottom, east to west, customized for your application, customized for different areas and different personas.
They're under it. They got it to the left. It's to the right.
Exactly. Connecting the front end to the back end, right? I mean, Copilot for finance, Copilot for pretty much any way you want to slice.
Sales, service.
Yeah. I know. No, it's incredible. Out of the box, right? With Azure AI, 1,600 different foundation models on Azure AI. And not just OpenAI, as some people mistakenly talk about. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on there. I think the book of news, again, was more like a dictionary of news. But those were the highlights for me.
Yeah, so you could go on and on, but I think the double, triple, quadruple click is that folks, the whole beauty of the AI Copilot plus PC and what it can do is it can give you all of the power of that sort of large language model in the cloud, but it's on your device. And so you said it, I want to say it again, because the reiteration here is, you don't have to do it and you don't have to let your device. But by the way, people, will you just stop acting like you give a crap about security? I mean, look, you carry the world's most capable surveillance device in your pocket all day long. You don't look at the settings. You don't read your privacy. You don't read your terms and conditions. And now you're going to care about this? Come on, get over it. I was on CNBC. I was asked about the whole Scarlett Johansson thing and the OpenAI. Look, OpenAI's got some cracks in the armor. There's some weird stuff going on there for sure. But the actual issues related to privacy, that ship sailed a long time ago. Nobody cares. Regulators don't have a prayer of being able to keep up with it. And
Dan, this was a factual thing, though.
No, I know. But what I'm saying, though, is like the whole trend line, though, Pat, of like people pretending to give a crap about something that they never gave a crap about. And in this case, it's not even accurate. So the point is now you're picking an unfactual idea that on your device, it's somehow sending this back to the cloud, which it's not. And people are going to suddenly be outraged by it when all day long they have a device that is connected to the cloud, sending out their data, and they do not care about it. So choose your outrage carefully, people, because this isn't your thing. And long and longer short here, Pat, is all I mean is like, look, we need these enterprises like Microsoft to build solutions that allow people to have AI on their device privately for their own use. By the way, this is what Dell is doing. We'll talk about this is what IBM is doing in the enterprises as well, so that companies can partition between what needs to stay private in the enterprise, compliant, regulated, and have the right data lineage and provenance. At the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes to get the right experience, you do need your data to go out. It needs to be refreshed. It needs to be, and you have to be able to be smart enough to make that decision. Enterprises are going to build products to grow their companies. That's my personal take, and we can debate that at some point if you don't agree with me. Not just you, Pat. Everybody out there, I'm ready to fight. I don't care. Let's go. Duke's up. I'm in. Okay. What else, though, Pat? Go ahead.
No. You tell me. I've already talked about build.
Okay. Well, real quickly, I mean, look, there was other things besides the PC, which the new Copilot Plus PC, they did expand their partnerships outside of sort of OpenAI. There were some bigger announcements with Hugging Face. They did, they did focus too on some small language models, which is really a trend line this week. These smaller language models getting more narrow. 5.3 was a big focus this week from Microsoft. And the idea of being able to use smaller models, that's partially about on device, but that's partially going to also be about enterprises being able to do vertical and industry specific things with models that are going to be more valuable, lower power usage, and more efficient for getting workloads done that are going to be business positive for companies. And that was a big part of the focus as well. Help developers build models that are going to drive efficiency, productivity in business, and ideally do it all as power efficiently as possible. Kind of a subtopic, Pat, because you and I both know the power and AI thing creates this really tough contention in terms of business strategies. But I think we're working towards it. We're seeing a lot of progress in AI. I'm going to move on from this one, but it was a very positive build. I actually thought it was very positive. Some people thought it was a little bit too AI device and gimmicky, and some of the things I read, I actually thought they hit the message really well this particular event, and I give kudos to Microsoft for this one.
And the only thing I want to wrap up, I just want to be very black and white about this. You can turn off all recall capabilities and it doesn't transmit data. It stays. That's the whole idea, folks, of on-device AI keeping your privacy the way that you want it. It does not transmit. While I'm sure in the future there might be an option for you to do that, to be able to save snapshots, to have a longer memory, you can turn that off too. So let's move on. Congratulations to Microsoft and also Qualcomm. Let's move to IBM Think. You and I left Dell Tech World, got on a red eye, landed at about 4 o'clock in the morning to get ready for our 7 o'clock appointments. Dan?
Yeah, look, I mean, IBM Think was another big inflection moment, kicked off by a keynote by Arvind Krishna. Arvind got on the stage, focused in on, the company's two main areas that they've been focused on for now, the better part of the last 3 or 4 years, but it's been hybrid cloud and AI. And you could kind of argue, to give some credit to IBM, when it was hybrid cloud and AI about 3 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, when Arvind took the helm of the company, hybrid cloud made a lot of sense. You and I were wrapped up in that world. That was pretty much anything and everything at the time. But AI was like it was a bit more curious because it was like, well, we've been doing AI forever. Like, but at the same time, like, what are we talking about? Machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, advanced analytics. What AI are we really talking about? And so with that in mind, I was kind of waiting, but you saw he hit the trend line on the head. First out of the gate about a year ago at their Think event where they did the IBM Watson X governance and IBM Watson X data and the whole platform, end-to-end enterprise AI, and they've nailed it. I mean, look, I'll give you the contentious sort of point of view on IBM. I really have admired under Arvind's leadership how they've been able to, launch and build this first out of the gate platform, first to GA platform. They've integrated a lot of really what I call good stuff with Red Hat. This week they came out talking about Instruct Lab, which is basically the ability to refine and tune models in a much more efficient way in an open source community. They, of course, continued to open source Granite models, which is, they're doing these models and they're very focused right now on this kind of smaller language models that can be utilized for vertical and industry solutions. And we're seeing coming out of consulting a whole bunch of really, capable use cases that are industry, financial services use cases, healthcare use cases, defense use cases. And that's kind of what I felt walking away from this thing was they also see that a lot of the time, what Dell kind of keeps saying, Pat, about bringing compute to your data, same kind of thing going on here. We're going to be doing a lot of it on premises. So the other thing is the other thing with IBM though that I thought was really prescient was the fact that they've been able to show, and this was more Rob Thomas, Dario Gill, you did a video with them. They've been able to communicate kind of the way that we can find economic efficiency in delivering more tuned models. We hear a lot about RAG, and we've heard a lot about RAG over the last several months. RAG is kind of the poor man's approach to doing model. Pat's shaking his head at me. It is the lowest common denominator of using your existing data. It's not always the most up to date. It uses more lineage and more older enterprise data. What they're trying to promote here with doing their approach with Instruct Lab is that the open source community can continually refine it and get the outputs and the quality and that you would get out of tuning. And forking models and tuning models is really hard, really expensive, and really difficult to track. So I keep kind of using this analogy of RAG cost. RAG is efficient price-wise because it's data you have. It can access that data and it can use it to create and generate outputs. Tuning is hard because you need synthetic data, you need to scale data, and you need to refine it in a way that's really, really expensive. And so my big takeaway, and we can have a bit of a debate on, is RAG the right model? Is tuning the right model? Is Instruct Lab the right way to go? But we need a bit of all of it. And IBM is helping proliferate it quite a bit faster. And that was my big takeaway from the event and kind of the key highlight to me.
Oh, that's a good breakdown, Dan. And it's interesting. If I had to sum up the entire conference, it would be that IBM is making AI real for enterprises, and that, hey, they could be your starting point, a strong alternative to starting with the hyperscaler. And not that you wouldn't deploy at hyperscalers, but starting there with Red Hat, for instance, leveraging Instruct Lab. And by the way, the reason I say that, and I know it could be super controversial, is because, as we've said, 75+% of enterprise data is on premises or on the enterprise edge, right? It's distributed, and therefore you have to have a hybrid architecture to do what IBM calls AI at scale. I totally believe that. And it's this idea of bringing the model to the data versus the data to the model, right? Starting off with an open-based model, you train it on public data, tune it to your own enterprise data. And also, I think IBM was all over smaller models. So, yeah, it was impressive, right? I finally understand what Concert was. It's kind of funny. Um, I love slides, and if you talk to me for an hour, like I might not have any idea what you're talking about, but Dario shows one slide on Instruct Lab, I see one slide on Concert, and boom, I understand exactly what it is. And Instruct Lab to me is like you've got the three bears, right? You can take this large language model, blow it up, do RAG against it, maybe get you 90% there. Or, you can create your own smaller model, which has been super expensive and complex. And Instruct Lab just seems like a great middle ground where you can actually create your own proprietary model. You can do RAG on it at the same time. So super impressive. The automation stuff with HashiCorp, I got to tell you, super compelling. I think there's so many different brands out there of IBM software. It's getting a little challenging, and I can understand this. There's two ways to look at this. One side says, hey, best of breed software and brands is the way to go. They're category killers, and that's what people want. And then on the other side of it, it's, hey, people want something that's kind of pulled together comprehensively. I don't have an exact answer for that, but when I looked at all the different brands and how they come together, it seemed a little complex for me. I'm going to end on, I think IBM needs to get more credit for its open models. I mean, they open sourced the Granite code models, and this is huge for programmers. I have no hesitancy as saying that these models do perform the best versus other open source models, doing what I love to talk about, and that is benchmarks. Bob, Dan, did I leave anything?
Hey, no. But at some point, we do need to come back to kind of talking about these different bears and these different approaches and the techniques and why certain ones are going to be better than others, and costing and structure. And then, of course, to your point, putting the benchmarks, testing the performance. Because in the end, it's all about getting the most accurate, on-point answers and building that data ecosystem that enables to create these frictionless experiences. So yeah, it was good stuff. It was a good event. I was pooped by the time I got home. Man, those red eyes just kill me. I think they say you die younger from those red eyes, and I'm pretty sure they're right.
Yep. So, our special guest we are introducing here, Dan Ives. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here. I thought Moorhead was going to wear his shades, but I guess not.
I got to tell you, man, trying to keep up with you is like going to be impossible. But hey, here we go.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God,
you
guys. All right, I'm feeling really left out here. But you know what? These are transition lenses, Dan. So if I go outside, they'll turn color too. My wife makes fun of me. She goes, you're wearing transition lenses, right? That was cool like 30 years ago.
I love it. I feel like Patrick, this is the start of his evolution. Next thing you know, he's going to be wearing like pink Aviator Nation. It's going to be crazy.
No, totally. So Dan, if you wouldn't mind, can you anybody who gets into what you do knows who you are, but Dan Ives, can you please introduce yourself, what you do, who you work for? And by the way, if you've ever turned on CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox, Yahoo Finance,
you're prolific, man. Pat and I kind of look, how is he everywhere at one time? How are you on? How do you do it? Now, give an intro. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, well, first, it's great to be with you guys, and I love all the work that you guys do. So it's great to be here. So I've covered tech stocks on Wall Street going back to the late 90s, and so I guess almost 24 years. And really, I started covering tech stocks back in the bubble. So covering tech stocks in the bubble, burst, and then kind of since, I think we've developed a reputation among institutional retail clients just trying to identify the trends, who the winners are, and just sticking to that and just doing the work, but also 3 million air miles, right? Like doing the work on the ground, right? Like in other words, I think that's been a huge differentiator for us, like with Apple or Tesla and some of the cloud and cybersecurity names, because like we've always said, and here I've been at Wedbush almost 6 years. It's hard to make these stock calls from a 10th floor office building in New York City. But look, but look, you guys do the same thing, right? You were just talking about it. Like, I think that's an edge that you get, that even though it's laborious, I think it helps in a confusing environment.
So Dan, let's put all of that awesomeness to the test. We are going to dive into NVIDIA, and we're going to give you the first word here, and let's talk about it. Break down NVIDIA Q1 FY25 earnings for us.
I mean, it's essentially, that's a masterpiece that they should hang that in the Louvre. I mean, because everywhere you look, 6 to 10 to 15% ahead of buy side whisper expectations. And if you look from a chip perspective, it's not slowing down, it's accelerating.
Yeah.
So I would almost say they had to do the split. Otherwise, you'd be looking at $40 of EPS earnings in 25, 26. I mean, it could kind of get like almost like Twilight Zone types of numbers. And I think the reality is like, look, we just had our Taiwan checks. We just came back, in terms of our Asia checks. It's showing basically through the end of next year, like we're essentially like sold out, right? So, and I think there were some fears about double ordering and things like that. As the godfather of AI, Jensen talked about, none of that, right? I think,
yeah,
and you guys see it firsthand, but if you don't get these chips, you're in the back of the line.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, Dan, what do you think about this? So if I look at the print from July of last year, right, they beat by 30% on EPS, 22% on revenue. And here we are. NVIDIA only beat 10% on EPS and only 6% on revenue. So the beats are declining. Is that because Wall Street analysts, folks like yourself, are getting better at the expectations, or something different?
Numbers came up 15% during the quarter. So essentially now what's happening is every week as everyone does their trips, numbers go up. And now even you could be like buy side whisper expectations are ramping further and further up, but we're not even there. In other words, I think the investors that I talk to, you're now starting to do some scenarios to be like, okay, like I don't think that we see any sort of slowdown for another 4 to 6 quarters. And under that assumption, that's why it goes back, like when people are like, oh, it's expensive and the stock. Look, I think so many investors that have missed every transformational growth theme, from Amazon to Microsoft to Tesla, Meta, many others, it's getting too caught up in just the straight PE valuation on next year's earnings. I think you got to look out next 3 years. And I think in the next 3 years, when we're talking NVIDIA, we're talking $3 trillion, and 4 trillion is not.
So Kelly Evans asked me that when I went on, like, could it be 4? And I said, at this point, it could probably get to 5. I mean, realistically, at the run rate, it could happen. And the interesting thing is, though, Dan, and I'd love to get your take on this, though, is like, it feels like it's all clear air. Like literally they're flying at like 48,000 feet. There's no do you see any do you see any of the people that kind of claim to be competition as actually meaningfully being able to compete anytime soon?
I mean, that won't happen until mid-26 at the earliest. So to your point, Jensen's flying that plane, and investors, they're sitting in 3A, drinking a Cabernet, watching Netflix, feeling really good about where that's going. And I think that's why, and also betting against it, you're betting against a force that we haven't seen since the mid-90s started the internet. The only difference is look at the actual profitability in those margins. And I think the bigger story here, and you guys do a great job always talking about it, and obviously see it for your clients. Like, if someone told you Dell was an AI play 6 months ago, now you guys were there, but others, they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So now look at ServiceNow, Oracle, start to go down the list, right? It's like, it's not just Microsoft and NVIDIA. So I think we're really going to start to see a re-rating as well as numbers go higher across the rest of tech.
Totally agree on that. And Dan, on the competitive front, let's just say that over 2.5 years, you're looking at a $400 billion market, and it is possible for NVIDIA to have stratospheric growth. And by the way, Intel and AMD can grow at the same time, in addition to some of the competition from AWS, Azure, and Google doing their own accelerators. I mean, is that the way you're kind of looking at this? Hey, there's going to be competition because AMD is getting traction. Intel next year will have its own GPU, but it doesn't even mean that it would take NVIDIA off track.
It's not going to take them off track. We're talking about demand they can fill. Now, look, if I'm betting on someone, it's Lisa Su and AMD. That's going to, like, if there's another player I'm betting on, I have confidence that they will get some of that overdraft. But it's essentially overflow.
Yeah.
And the reality is, where's it?
No, I was just going to say there's a market to be had, though, by being the overflow. It's funny, Dan, I use the analogy of NVIDIA sits right now where Intel sat at its peak for compute. I mean, at its peak, where it has like a multi-decade lead. It could literally screw up for the next like 12 years and still have 70% of the market. I mean, that's kind of like, because I mean, that's what's happened with, in a really broad brush, Intel has had a really tough decade and still has majority share of certain architectures. The problem is now the architecture is changing.
And the problem right now, it's like the godfather of AI, Jensen, sitting in his office, the dark office with his black leather jacket, and people are coming in. Jensen, can I get just a little piece? He's like, we'll see in a year and a half. So by being the godfather of a fourth industrial revolution, betting against that on valuation with your 10 spreadsheets, tough bet, right?
Well, the only thing I guess that's interesting for folks like us, Dan, is we have to try to see the things that happen a little bit before everyone else sees them. That's what makes us any good at what we do. I think we all have our claim to fame wins. I always point back to July 22. I went on and Becky Quick was hitting me on why I was still saying NVIDIA when it was at 150 and it was burning. And I go, look, do you believe in AI or you don't? I said, I believe in AI. And so they're the only company right now that's got the whole stack. It's going to run.
Also, you guys, when you say like that's your claim, I actually think in my view, where you and Patrick have been so ahead, it's not just on that. It's names like Dell, the IBM re-rating.
Yep.
Like if you look ServiceNow and I feel like you're some of the only ones else out there that like you were like 3 steps ahead, and now that's starting to come through. I think that's even because it's not just about NVIDIA, right? It's about the ripple effect. Because I think what's fascinating now is the second, third, fourth derivatives playing out. You guys have just been road warriors. I feel like I'm like, how could they be at another user conference?
Hey, Dan, I just want to thank you. It's funny, Dan and I love to talk about ourselves and pat each other on the back, but coming from you, that means a lot. I mean, listen, the thesis we threw out almost 18 months ago, it's going to start in the hyperscaler data center. It's going to move to enterprise IT, which also pulls with it enterprise SaaS AI. And then, by the way, it's going to the AI PC. Look at Qualcomm's numbers, all-time high, okay? And we're going to see by the way, the next step.
That was an all-time high too, by the way, Pat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Dan, after this, it's going to be the AI smartphone. So
No, exactly.
yeah,
That's exactly.
Apple.
And just so you know, from our perspective, 18 months ago, where you feel like you're like a lone wolf, right? Like just like with a thesis. I actually like people like, like all the work that your team does. As someone that I super respect, I would look at the stuff you're talking about to triangulate what I'm doing, because I think it's important where like, and we've all been there, right? Like when you're in markets where everyone's saying like, you're a clown, you're crazy, but I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, look, like if I'm in Asia on a 2-week trip and I'm seeing it throughout the supply chain, you could say that from the 10th floor of your office building. I'll go with my data. You go with your data.
Exactly. Oh, that's great stuff.
So,
hey, yeah, go ahead,
oh
Dan.
no, we got what, like maybe a minute or two, Pat, and then we got to roll. And Dan, thanks so much. You heading to the studio or you heading to the office?
I just came back in between, then a podcast and stuff. But look, but I was super excited to all the work that you guys are doing. It's phenomenal, because I think when I think AI revolution, we're all going to be a part, and to be a part of this journey with you guys is going to be awesome.
So next week we sit down, our big event, the summit. Love for you to give it a shout, Dan, if you ever get the chance. Our 6 we got Bill McDermott as our main keynote. We're going to be sitting down with him in the office next week. What should I ask him? What should I tell him? Dan Ives wanted me to ask you. What should we ask? What should we ask him?
When you have the goat there, ask McDermott. Be like, look, you've seen everything the last 30 years. Where does this compare? Whether it was mid 90s, early. I mean, the guy's seen everything from Oracle days to, to the cloud shift to PC. I think it's for him to kind of separate how real is this versus hype. And I think when it comes from his mouth, the credibility there, it's a drop to mic when McDermott talks. Because I think, in my opinion, in that Mount Rushmore of tech CEOs, of course, godfather of AI, Jensen, Nadella, Cook, dude, McDermott's up there, man. They're starting to etch it.
Well, I don't know, Pat. I mean, look, we should do this again. We should have you back. What's the next Apple? Is that would be like so?
WWDC, yeah.
So maybe we can get you to chime back in for WWDC. Pat and I, we pick on Apple more than others. You can come in and kick our ass for it because we've been a little harder on them than you just came out and basically said they're going to get this next trend right. So I guess
they deserve that. Now you have 2.2 billion reasons in terms of iOS come out and now have the renaissance of growth. And I view Apple as where I viewed Meta 18 months ago.
And listen, Apple is going to be amazing if they can leverage their platform for the AI iPhone. And they're going to do that. I mean, they're not going to lose share. Okay. I mean, their biggest thing is reducing the replacement cycle for your phone. And imagine if they would do that by a year. Run those numbers, Dan.
And right now, the New York City cab driver they're bearish on Apple.
Right. I love it. Hey, Dan, thank you for joining us. This is great. By the way, keep your eye on Taiwan next week at Computex. Dan's going to be there, but there's going to be a lot of announcement. Qualcomm, Intel, AMD are all bringing out new stuff there. By the way, all three CEOs will be there, including your AI godfather, Jensen Huang.
And now Moorhead's going to start wearing his sunglasses these user conferences. But you got to give me credit. You got to give me credit when you start wearing the sunglasses and you start wearing the sunglasses indoors. Okay?
Buddy, I got to tell you,
nobody does it like McDermott.
Dan, the future is so bright.
McDermott's the GOAT. He's top of there. Come on.
The future is so bright, Dan. I got to wear these nonstop. Anyways, Dan Ives, thanks, buddy. And you take care. Take care.
See you soon, bud.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that was fun.
I know.
On the road, man. Talk about a 6'5" on the road. I mean, literally on the road in the streets of New York. Dude, what's with the shades? I mean, am I out? I feel like outside of some inside joke. What's the reason he's pushing you to wear shades so much?
Probably just because I threw them on. Listen, I walk to work. You don't. Actually, you do walk to work, but I don't know.
Did you guys talk about it in the green room when y'all were hanging out? Are you going to start wearing like periwinkle and blue and pink jacket? Because, you know,
I got to be me, Dan. I don't want to be
the second. I don't want to be the second most important Dan in your life. We've got to make sure we hit this at the curve. But
I'll always be my bestie.
All right, we got two topics left. You want to hit Lenovo?
Sure. Let's.
Oh, wait, you're the host. Let me get out of here.
Well, actually, we're hitting Synopsys, and you're hitting it. So
I'm gonna hit Synopsys. All right, that's fine. Yeah, we only got a few minutes, so let's move pretty quickly here. Look, there's the kind of the good, the bad. So Synopsys did a recast in the middle of the last quarter, and it sort of created a little bit of confusion because the initial sort of readout on Synopsys was that it effectively had missed its result on the top line bottom. Had to do with the SIG, the spinoff and the numbers. But after they actually recasted it, it looks like they basically had a high range of guidance and a beat. Look, I mean, in the end, Pat, Synopsys is one of the coolest companies most people have never heard about. They're in the middle of a huge acquisition of Ansys. They're really important in that whole chip design space. With more and more companies in the automotive space and in the hyperscaler space, all building their own silicon. They are one of the most important technology companies on the planet right now and starting to get credit for it. But of course, they got kind of slammed on the immediate onset because people were reading it and didn't look at the adjustment that they made on their investor day. And
did they just not believe them or something? Like, okay, I'm not going to believe what you're saying here.
You know what? I can't, for the one time, I don't have the insight to say for sure. But what I'm telling you is I was the first on Twitter to come out and say they were wrong when they actually said it was a miss. And thanks for amplifying my tweets so someone would actually see it. Anyways, but we also have
you deleted that one though.
No, I didn't. Not that one. I kept that one live. It was the one I tweeted later that no one read that I deleted. Yeah, so everyone out there just know there's an inside joke here. It's not actually that funny to me, but there is an inside joke. And look, but here's the thing about AI. The AI trend line is going to create more chips by homegrown. It's going to create more chips by all the merchant providers. And it's going to create a more rapid pace of innovation. We've heard Jensen come out on this call, basically talk about Blackwell and then a 1-year cadence. This isn't only going to be NVIDIA. Everyone now is going to be beholden to the cadence that's being created by the godfather of AI himself. I can't say that anymore. In terms of designing next level chips. And then of course, these tools, the AI and the EDA tools are also going to be used to, drive more efficiency, more pricing. And of course, Synopsys brought out generative tools to help companies move even faster with design, which as we can see is going to be absolutely necessary. Pat, I'm going to hit this one quick. That's all I got to say. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to listen. Synopsys is an incredible play, but listen, 5 years from now, EDA is going to be the power player. Are they going to be the NVIDIA? I don't know, but we have more transportable intellectual property. We have more companies who want to develop their own chips, right? We're already seeing it with the hyperscalers and the auto companies. And then you've got merchant silicon companies doing more chips, more diverse, and you have more designs integrating generative AI capabilities, which you need to respin your designs even on the Internet of Things. And I just think that this company, people don't understand it. And like 10 years ago, I called hybrid cloud when everybody was saying cloud only. EDA companies like Synopsys are going to be fire. People just don't know it yet. All right, let's move into Lenovo earnings just to end this out. First of all, what a banger of a quarter. I mean, I wasn't expecting this at all. If you look at the companies that compete with Lenovo head on, Lenovo blew it out of the water. I mean, the revenue is up almost 10%. right? Net income was up 118%. Every single business was up. Non-PC revenue, 45%. That's huge because when people think of Lenovo, they mistakenly think of PCs only, but I understand why they do, because they're number one market share. SSG services up 10%. Non-PC services up 55%. That's huge. ISG, which is data center and edge, up 15%. That's a quarterly record. Storage and services up 52%. They had records on HPC on the edge. I got the chance to chat with Kirk Skaugen on AI servers, and there wasn't a whole lot of information there. But basically, 29% of the mix is AI servers. Pipeline grew 55% quarter on quarter to over $7 billion. Now that's pipeline, not backlog. AI servers up 46%. Storage attached to AI servers up 70%. And 270% growth on their leading AI server platforms, L40 and I40. And finally, they confirmed a new $1 billion customer win. Doing great.
$1 billion?
Yeah. But to finalize IDG on devices, revenue up 7%, but everybody's down. How does that work? Apple's down. HP's down. Dell's down. Crazy stuff. And a good profit margin. In fact, their profit margin is higher than Dell's PC unit. Crazy stuff.
118% net income this quarter, Pat.
Oh, no, I know on the PC side, but literally their profit margin was higher than Dell. Anyways, Dan?
Credit where credit's due, my friend. And as we wrap up here, you hit a lot of it on the head. I mean, look, I think everybody is going to pay attention to one, how are they doing on the diversification of their business, right? Lenovo was a long time the PC company. That was all people really knew it for. It aggressively, ambitiously, and took a pretty big risk to go hard into infrastructure and services. And now, Pat, it's basically seeing its non-PC revenue making up almost half of its business. That's a big monumental pivot. And so a lot of credit due there. We're seeing pretty strong growth across, which you kind of hit on, Pat, but the solution services growth, very, very strong. The ISG growth, good on revenue, but of course, services attached to ISG growth looked very, very encouraging. I do agree with you, Pat. I think if a Lenovo wants to get the full credit and get the full love of the street and the full love of the market, they're going to have to get more granularity on their AI number. Dell kind of right now is stolen the day.
Totally.
And partially, by the way, just because the way they report things, the outsiders were able to do the backwards napkin math and basically get it out. And now that's kind of leaked out and everybody's kind of seeing it looks like Dell's getting the lion's share of that particular opportunity against the other OEMs. Lenovo, if you have more to say, it would be good. Love to share it, especially if it's going directionally in a way that I would expect it to be. Pat, on the IDG side, look, the smartphone growth is really interesting. I'm guessing, Pat, it was largely outside of the US where that growth was coming from, but I would have to do a little bit of digging to show that. But some of those phones, some of those foldables and stuff, very cool designs, Pat. Very cool, very accessible, very reasonable. I have one. I think you have one. I like it. Growing up as a Chicago boy myself, Motorola was cool. Was cool. And by the way, everybody out there, Lenovo, that's the Moto. That's the business. That's the one that Google bought and then sold on, and now Lenovo has, and they're starting to do good things with it. So credit to Lenovo for executing its plan. This is the quarter it's needed. It's had a few rough ones. This is a good turn to the positive for the company. I'll be out in Raleigh with Kirk Skaugen myself to record a 6-5 session, Pat. Where will you be? The Champs-Elysees or Bond Street? What are you going to be doing, buddy? Tell everybody what you're doing and why they're not going to see us next week on Friday.
So it's been about 15 years before I've taken a proper vacation, and I'm going to be taking a 2-week vacation with my family. I will be checking in and commiserating on the social medias, but it's been too long and hanging out with the fam. But I appreciate you taking the baton, going to Computex, and representing the 6.5. I appreciate that.
Hey man, that's why my blood pressure's high.
Say hi to Anshul Sog for me when you're out there. Ryan Shrout will be out there as well.
Signal 65 crew. And Pat, I got to run in a second, but can I give a shout out to the business that you and I and Ryan put together this year, Signal 65, and the amazing work that it has done on the AI PC, Copilot Plus PC. That if you have a chance, man, check out the report that we put out. It was published this week. It was cited in Tom's Hardware. There was a Market Watch piece. I mean, we are creating the future of testing, performance, and analysis and opinion on this. Great job to Ryan. Pat, of course, great job to you. I was a beautiful but handsome and also gorgeous innocent bystander in all of this. Kidding. But good job, Signal. Congratulations on all the work that you all have done. And Pat, I'll let you take us home.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to take a 2-week break as Pat is out. And I don't know, maybe we'll jump on, but probably not.
You're going to miss me. Maybe not the first week, but I think the second week you're going to be like, I need to do a pod with Daniel. I'm dying.
I think you're probably right, particularly after what's cooking at Computex.
Especially when I bring Stacy and Dan on and we do an episode without you.
Exactly. All right, buddy. I am jealous. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you dealing with Daniel and I. Don't forget, we've got our 6.5 Summit kicking off in 3 weeks. We have 25 CEOs talking thought leadership across everything from chips to SaaS and everything in between. Hit the 65.com. Take care.